What's good? What's good? What's good? Let's do a audio check real quick. Audio check. Audio motherfucking check. We're gonna get into some shit, man. On all subjects. Just like I promised you guys, this channel was not gonna be one dimensional. This channel was gonna be based upon several different things that I partake in my daily life. Because how could I come to you guys with some bullshit about one particular subject, which may be a good idea actually, but I can't do that. I gotta come to you guys with everything that I'm about, everything that I fucking look at, not just one particular aspect, because life is not like that. Life is multifaceted. In case you thought I was too turned up, hold on, let me put part 2. Part 2. In case you thought I was too turned up. The real reason why I'm fucking pissed off. You ready? You ready? You ready? Here we go. Check this shit out. And this is just one of numerous instances. One of a multitude of moments where they've done shit like this. Okay? Of moments where they've done shit like this. Audio check is good.
Just weeks after he seemed to endorse a Myanmar-style coup in the United States, former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn made these questionable comments over the weekend after being gifted a rifle during a church event in California.
This is one of our top quality guns, and
maybe I'll find somebody in Washington, D.C.
Maybe I'll find somebody in Washington, D.C. Oh, oh. Let's go back.
Just weeks after he seemed to endorse a Myanmar-style coup in the United States, former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn made these questionable comments over the weekend after being gifted a rifle during a church event in California.
This is one of our top quality guns, and
maybe I'll find somebody in Washington, D.C.
You see that? You see that? You see why I be wildin'? Why I be upset? Because these maniacs who can have the media report on them, who are in public positions and can gather a crowd in political environments, who can gather a crowd of people who associate with a certain political party, feel like they have the ability to just call upon death upon their adversaries. That's why I'm pissed off. Because this shit has been going on for a while now. And let me tell you something. Let me be 100% candid with you. I was somebody that watched Alex Jones a lot. When it came to 9/11, I said this in the last video, I had some questions. Some of the things that were said about 9/11 didn't add up. Some of the things that were said about 9/11 when it came to people who were questioning things made some sense. But when the whole flat earth thing came about, I was like, yo, this is some bullshit. When the whole fascism and essentially the propagation and promotion of right-wing extremism, fascism, as a form of resolution to quote-unquote an essential problem, when that came about, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck is this? And I backed off. And this is after years of watching Alex Jones. Years. Because at first, he wasn't so irate. At first, he wasn't so radical. It was more concise. But then slowly, surely, he started doing these weird fucking things. Right? He started doing the Hitler. And I was like, yo, something's not right. And then, like I said in the last video, he called for the death of Democrats, which is why he was kicked off. And now you have that. You have all the bullshit lies. You have the propaganda. You have people who just come up and give you conspiracy theories when you run into them on the street. And just, they show you some meme or some video on YouTube. Some guy walked up to me the other day and was like, I saw this meme and I decided not to get vaccinated. Watch this. Like I was going to look at the meme and be like, you know what? You're right. Let me not get vaccinated. And let me keep it real with you guys. I haven't gotten vaccinated yet. Why? Because I have my reservations in regards to the medical system, my personal reservations, my personal doubts in regards to vaccines. But I am still open-minded because I understand we're in the midst of a pandemic and it looks like the coronavirus vaccines are the last line of defense against a extremely deadly disease. Airborne disease, right? I'm still aware of that and I'm still able to process that and I'm still able to say, you know what? Maybe I should get a vaccine to be safe and not be sorry. And I can say that with a clear conscience because I am not a scientific expert. And sometimes you do unfortunately have to trust other individuals or entities in order to make sure your self-preservation is intact for the greater good of yourself and mankind. Okay? Now, with that being said, I've never called for the death of another person because politically they didn't agree with me. I never called for the death or said in a joking fashion that I would kill somebody or even make a reference or inference or any form of indication to make anyone think that I was going to do bodily harm to another individual based upon that being a joke or something that people think is the undertone of a certain group of people, whether it be me facing a crowd of people at that time or the broadening republic itself, right? I've never done that. But these guys think it's okay. And that's where I draw the motherfucking line.
Just weeks after he seemed to endorse a Myanmar-style coup in the...
Which he did. He did that shit. They got that shit. They asked him about it. What I'm just trying to understand, like, is it because you're like white and you're like, oh fuck it, let's blow shit? I'm just trying to get an understanding. What is it that makes certain people think they have the right to subject other people? I'm just trying to understand that. Those people don't realize that they're people like others? Like they're just regular people, like those people that they don't like? That everyone's just a person? And no one's better than the other? Like, that we're all equal? Is that hard to understand? Or is it because he knows that I can say some shit like this because this is my feedback loop. And this is what they want to hear. And this is how I stay keeping my pockets fat by not just using a tactic called confirmation bias, but going even beyond confirmation bias. Going beyond that of confirming what you're already biased with. Fucking, you don't like Democrats? Fuck it, let's kill them. Right?
United States, former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn made these questionable comments over the weekend after being gifted a rifle during a church event in California.
This is
check this shit out, y'all.
One of our top quality guns, and
Maybe I'll find somebody in Washington, D.C.
Maybe I'll find someone in Washington before he can even finish. Before his statement can even be finished. This is one of our top quality. The crowd, oh, look, smile on the motherfucker face. Look at this. Smile on his face. Smile on his face. Smile on his face. Smile on his face. Her face. They're all smiling. This is all fun and games, right? Right? It's all just a joke until they show up to your fucking doorstep. Then it ain't funny no more. Until 7 cops die and motherfuckers get their brains bashed in, and the people that you thought you were rolling with that had your back trample you, then it's not funny anymore. These people make me sick, man. These people make me sick, dude. They make me sick. Like, if anyone was an inhuman piece of garbage, it would be these kind of motherfuckers.
Discuss. So I want to be clear, first of all, Flynn's team said that Myanmar comments, in which he seemed to endorse a coup, were distorted, although it seems pretty clear from the tape.
Oh, yeah, there was a distortion. There was a distortion about me approving a coup during a presidential election for the reason that, so that way one guy who lost the election could essentially not even have an election and just proclaim himself to be ruler of that providence. Yeah, it's just a distortion. It's merely just a distortion. By the way, my guy who I worked for wanted the same thing, but it's just a distortion. This is what they do. They tell you what they're really feeling, but then they say, oh no, I don't feel like that.
They've not responded to requests for comment about these latest remarks. But Rachel, this is yet another very bizarre, troubling comment from a man who used to be a very highly esteemed general.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely disgusting. I mean, if you think about the timing of this right now, there are lawmakers on Capitol Hill who are dealing with death threats on a regular basis. And I mean, January 6th, the storming of the Capitol, a terrorist attack in our own country. And you have somebody who used to be working in our government.
Putin laughing his motherfucking ass off, bro. Putin laughing at his ass off. He's showing up at the interviews like, yeah, well, what about the 400 people that just wanted answers? They just wanted answers. And did your government give them answers? No. Meanwhile, a person who tries to run against him criticizes him. And what does Putin do? He throws that motherfucker in jail. For all we know, that motherfucker's in a grave somewhere. We don't know what happened to this dude. Anyone know what happened to the guy that spoke out against Putin? No, because if you speak out against Putin, you die. But he feels that it's okay to say, well, people just wanted answers. They just wanted answers, and did you give it to them? Our government would have gave them answers, right? Right? This shit is beyond comical. It's beyond sick. It's extreme.
Saying, I'm going to take a gun to Washington, suggesting he could shoot people. I mean, it's the height of irresponsibility, and, it's just absolutely...
It's more than irresponsibility. It's criminal. It's fucking criminal. You cannot say that. You know what premeditated... I wanted to say this in my last video. Premeditated murder is? It means you think about it and then you do it. It's murder. When you say it and then motherfuckers go do it, it's conspiracy to commit murder.
Absolutely appalling, and there needs to be more Republicans who call it out and say this is unacceptable.
Let's turn to...
No Republican's going to call it out. Not one. Not one. Maybe just... You know what? I'm sorry. Maybe 5. If we're lucky, 10. Out of 500? That hold the seat? Out of 200? That ain't shit.
To the January 6th insurrection, because the committee is obviously beginning its first hearing tomorrow. Today, Ramesh, we heard Liz Cheney respond to Kevin McCarthy's claim that she and Adam Kinzinger were, quote...
Liz Cheney's cut the fuck off. Now, look. I'm not a Cheney fan, okay? I don't like fucking the Cheneys. Not a fan of Dick Cheney. I think he's a piece of shit. But that's how far we've gone. Where you at, Jimmy Dory? You fucking did a video like, oh, that's how crazy things are. The Democrats and the Republicans have switched. That's how crazy. I'm at Flappers. And they've switched. Oh my God, they switched. Okay. Where the fuck are you? Okay. When Liz fucking Cheney is too liberal for the Republican Party. Where are you? Where are you? Because you claim that the fucking Democrats switched, which is a Republican talking point, to justify that there were Dixiecrats and that they're no longer, that they're not the Dixiecrats, even though real motherfuckers who know what's up know they are. But you're getting that paper though. You're getting that paper though, so you can't do that, Jimmy Dory, because if you do speak the real, if you do talk the real, guess what? You lose that money, baby. You can't go and no longer do, you can't stop confirmation bias. You can't stop the metals.com pitch. Okay? You can't stop the metals.com scandal. All right? You can't stop that. So you go along with the bullshit. I've been around the block. I know what the fuck's going on.
Pelosi Republicans. Here's Cheney responding.
We have important work to do, and I think that's pretty childish.
We should note Kevin McCarthy does vote more with Nancy Pelosi than Liz Cheney votes with Pelosi in terms of who's. But I guess the litmus test of whether you're a Pelosi Republican or a Trump Republican is whether or not you support Trump and not conservative values in some ways.
Well, it may be a childish taunt on McCarthy's part, but it's also one that could have a real sting.
You see, it may be a childish taunt on McCarthy's part. Why do they get the benefit of the doubt? That shit ain't childish. That shit ain't a game. Real people die in the midst of these things. But no, it's like they're always scared to fucking say the real. So they gotta say, oh well, it may be just a child, they're just being childish. It's just a childish taunt from McCarthy, so it's just, he's being childish. What can you do, But that's a little different in the real world. See, you've already scapegoated McCarthy. You've already given him cover. It's not childish. He's a fucking 60-year-old man.
Yeah. It is the sort of thing that could really stick and hurt Cheney and other like-minded Republicans, a few like-minded Republicans, in their primaries this next year. It's right that she votes with conservative Republicans. She agrees with McCarthy on abortion and guns and taxes and all the issues. The question is agreement with Trump and taking the Trump line on the events of January 6th, is that going to become the defining issue? Do Republicans really want to tie themselves, not just to Trump, but to the worst aspect of the Trump administration?
Yeah, because they don't give a fuck. Because they think in their own mind, we're the hope. We're the crusaders. We're the crusaders.
I think they do.
I mean, so far,
the evidence seems to suggest.
That's what the evidence suggests. And even to the point that now some House Republicans are talking about possibly stripping Cheney and Kinzinger of their committee assignments to show that they're no longer considered part of the Republican caucus in a way. And it shows that, at least right now in America, the Republican Party is Trump's party, and you've got to be with him 100% or certain people want to kick you out.
It's funny because today McCarthy objected to,
which is extremely dangerous, because that means it's a gang mentality. Like, even if I'm wrong, nigga, you got to go with me. We going down together, right? Even though I started the beef, even though I lied about this shit, you got to be on my side or I'm going to ruin you, or you're on that side, or I'm going to have the other homies come and get you. The fuck is this shit, man? You're entitled to not... Whatever happened to rights as a person, an American? You have rights. You don't have to go along with whatever bullshit someone tries to spoon feed you.
To the fact that Pelosi vetoed two members of the committee that he'd put up, including Congressman Banks, who is an Afghan veteran, a veteran of the war in Afghanistan.
See how these fucking CNN, he was an Iraq veteran and he was an Afghanistan veteran, and she blocked him even though he was an Afghanistan veteran, and clearly he's not a fascist because he was an Afghanistan veteran. He's fine. I mean, he's an Afghanistan veteran. He's not a fascist, right? I mean, look at this guy. He's a vet. Dude, go online and type in army mantras that they have them run to when they're first in training camp. The shit that they have them say. Gonna kill Charlie, soon we see his eyes, soon we see his eyes. They're not going to talk about that. They're not going to talk about how racism is the fabric in which they're able to get you to essentially pull out what they want to pull out, because inherently it's a racist fucking system in which they propagate and promote.
And yet he thinks nothing about turning around and insulting Adam Kinzinger, another decorated veteran, calling him a Pelosi Republican. So I guess that war service only meant.
What the fuck is a Pelosi Republican? What is that? A Pelosi Republican? What the fuck is that? What is that? Oh, he's an Obama fucking Democrat. Oh, he's a Pelosi Republican. Oh, he's a fucking Dick Cheney fucking independent. Oh, he's an Alex Jones fucking Republican. What the fuck does that even mean? What does that fucking mean? It means nothing. That's why he came out there and when they interviewed him, he was like, he's a Pelosi Republican, right? Isn't he? Trump told me to do that one myself. Actually, Trump didn't tell me. I just came up with that right now. Dude, this shit is crazy. Pelosi Republican? What? That makes no fucking sense.
Matters if you're on the right side of the Donald Trump issue.
Yeah, and ideas don't matter anymore either, right? Liz Cheney has a 78% career rating for the American Conservative Union. Adam Kinzinger, who I think of as much more moderate, 59.6. Okay, Liz was replaced in leadership by Ellie Stefanik of New York, 44% conservative rating. So it's not about ideas. They didn't even produce a platform. You know, I mean, I was raised to believe politics is about mediating disputes peacefully and allocating resources equitably. And so
Who's the most democratic person? I don't give a fuck about Liz Cheney and her father who lied about weapons of mass destruction, their background. Fuck all them. Now she has a clear conscience. Fuck them. Who's the most democratic person? Because you motherfuckers are telling me all kind of shit about Republicans who I don't give a shit, who are nothing more than a bunch of tyrannical terrorist fucking insurrectionists. I can care less about them. But yeah, you know all the facts about whether there's 60% of the Republican vote to prove that they're not so biased or they're the most conservative or whatever the fuck, or conservatism is not exactly what this is, which I somewhat agree with. But like, why do I give a shit? Like, why do I even care? Like, who gives a fuck? Like, I don't want to know about Liz Cheney. Like, Liz Cheney's our fucking our cohort during this. That's how crazy things are. That Liz Cheney's the one that we have to go to help.
We can argue about that. That's no longer the Trump Republican view. It's like we think taxes should go down or a wall should go up. All they want is fealty to this insurrectionist. And I think it's a political dead end, but it's a tragedy for democracy.
And Rachel, we just learned that at the same time as tomorrow's hearing.
We'll see if it's a political dead end. I hope it's a political dead end. It's definitely a tragedy, but it's what the last president is all about. He's all about him. I'll give you an example, or I'll tell you this, but it won't happen. If people decide, you know what, we're going to make this about me and not about him, and they start asking him, well, what about policy? What about this? What about that? He's always going to revert back to himself because he's incapable. He doesn't have the capability of making things about more than himself. Everything is about him, what he's going through, because he's self-centered. He doesn't have the ability to ask about, what about this and that? The only reason why he's using whataboutism is because it suits his needs. He's saying, what about the machines? Because he lost the election. He's saying, what about the people that did this or whatever? Because it affects him. He doesn't ever say, what about I don't know, Higher taxes? When the fuck did you ever hear him talk about taxes? He barely mentions the conservative fucking agenda. It's about him personally, what's personally affecting him. And if you fall into that trap and he brings you in and you allow him to bring you in, then it's just another, then you're just another um um proponent and avenue and tool for his further increase and longevity towards whatever goal he's trying to accomplish.
4 Republican members of Congress in an alternate universe would be considered fringe members, but here they're mainstream Republicans. Matt Gaetz, Louis Gohmert, Paul Gosar, who flirts with white nationalists, and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
How do you flirt with white nationalists? How do you flirt with that shit? Hey, white nationalists, you know what? That's some nice boots. Really? Did you get the muscles on your own or you work out? How the fuck do you flirt with white nationalists? You're either a white nationalist or you're not. You see what I'm saying with the talking, with how they use the terminology in which they use. Oh, he flirts with it. He flirts with it. He just tried to take it out on a date. He met white nationalists on fucking Match.com and swiped right. Get the fuck out of here, man.
These 4 are going to hold a press conference demanding answers on treatment of January 6 prisoners. January 6 prisoners, like they're political prisoners. Now, Brian Walsh, who used to work for the National Republicans.
What happened to the kids that were being fucking given like aluminum blankets and shit at the detention centers and how they were separated from their parents? What happened to those kids? Real prisoners. Real prisoners. What happened to them? Do we even give a fuck about them anymore? Okay? What happened to the uterus snatcher? Motherfuckers is snatching uteruses on some Nazi shit. But what are we talking about now?
Senatorial Committee, we probably are familiar with Brian. I still follow him on Twitter. Yeah. He tweeted, stating the obvious, but you can't credibly claim to support our brave men and women in law enforcement, especially the Capitol Police, but then side with their attackers.
No fucking shit, but they wind up doing anyway. You can't claim that it's a hoax on the coronavirus, but then want credit for the fucking vaccine, can you? Can you? But guess who has the fucking gall to do that?
Tomorrow is going to be a disastrous day for McCarthy on both ends of the spectrum here. I mean, you are going to have men and women in uniform testifying about the violence they witnessed on January 6th. McCarthy is still sticking with Trump. That, number one, is going to be tough for the party and tough for him. Number two, he decided to withdraw all his members from this committee. So he is not going to have anybody to push back on anything that is being said up there, which is going to create a real messaging problem for him when he's trying to deflect or whatever, change the story. And then you have these members who are going to be at the Justice Department talking about prisoners, January 6th prisoners. These people were rioters. Calling them prisoners now, it's just...
Terrorists. They weren't rioters. They were terrorists. They were criminal propagandists, terrorists. They were right-wing extremist terrorists. They were Proud Boys. They were white supremacist, fascist terrorists. I can go on and on.
It's going to be impossible for McCarthy. He's going to have to answer for the people who are testifying, the law enforcement officers, but also these people on the very far fringe of the right who are saying these crazy things, and he needs to push back on them.
And then, Tia, take a listen to Donald Trump over the weekend in his big lie.
Let's not, but whatever.
Rally in Arizona.
And they say, well, sir, we have to get on to the future.
Well, sir, the businesses and the viruses and the viruses and the viruses.
You're not going to have a future. First of all, our nation is being destroyed, but you're not going to have a future in 22 or 24 if you don't find out how they cheated.
So he seems to be acknowledging there that
if he would have won, it would have been the most remarkable landslide in the history of fucking politics. And obviously everyone likes me, even the Democrats. And I won because clearly it's just bullshit with this guy. It's literally just fucking bile coming out of this guy's mouth. I mean, anything he says, it's just pure unadulterated bullshit. You're not gonna... They didn't then why didn't you pull out the election? You should have been like, nah, fuck this. You should have been like, nah, fuck this. You should have done what your original plan was to suspend the election. That was what they were talking about. Did anyone forget that? Republicans, all these motherfuckers were talking about suspending the election when people didn't want to deal with, didn't stand for that, or fucking ignored them and went along with the election anyway. They had no choice.
That he is hearing from Republicans, we need to move on, and he's like, I don't care.
Right. And right now, Republican leaders are following his lead. Representative Barry Loudermilk, who's in Georgia's delegation, he was just on TV last week talking about why he feels like Georgia's election results need to be audited yet again. You know, so that has become such a focus for Republicans.
Why Georgia? Why Georgia? Why Arizona? So let me get this straight. There was voter fraud in Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, and where else? But there wasn't voter fraud in Texas. There wasn't voter fraud in Florida. There wasn't voter fraud in South Carolina. There wasn't voter fraud in New Mexico. There wasn't voter fraud there? Just those states? It wasn't across the board. It wasn't the whole election itself. It was just in Arizona and Georgia. Well, why Arizona and Georgia? Why those states? Oh, is it because those were states that you won during Hillary Clinton, but you lost during Joe Biden? Is that why?
Republicans is to continue to try to relitigate the 2020 election that was more than 6 months ago.
Trump arguably threw away the presidency by hyping this vote fraud idea and discouraging mail-in.
No. Let me tell you where he threw away the presidency. Let me tell you guys where Donald Trump threw away the presidency. You want to know where he threw away the presidency? I'm going to tell you right motherfucking now. Donald Trump threw away the presidency when he didn't respond to COVID-19. Period. Point motherfucking blank. Because guess what? If he would have shut down the country and would have said, fuck this, we're going to, if anybody would have been able to get away with it, is that doofus. We're going to shut everything down. We're going to fucking make sure this thing never comes back. We're going to completely eradicate this thing. I believe in you guys. I know things look a little crazy, but this is what we have to do to make sure that this virus doesn't run rampant, to make sure we have free and fair elections. Sorry, guys. This may cost me the presidency, but I have to do what's right for the country. But he's incapable of doing that, number one. But if he would have done that, guess what? He would have won. But because he denied that COVID-19 was the real thing, and COVID-19 took the effects that it took and ravished the United States in which the way it ravished it, it caused a detriment to the election, meaning we couldn't run the election the normal way. We had to run it a different way. And his response to COVID-19 left us a bad taste in people's mouth. So people voted based on his response to COVID-19. And because he didn't eradicate it in the beginning, it caused the election to be done a different way, which essentially cost him the fucking presidency. Okay? All right. He tried to do his Trump thing like, oh, it's not real. It's a hoax. The Democrats, they've essentially have caused all these problems. It's not real. Don't believe the media. Woo-hoo-hoo. Woo-hoo-hoo. That cost him the presidency.
In voting by Republicans. He threw away the Republican Senate by convincing a lot of Republican voters in Georgia not to vote because votes couldn't be trusted. But apparently he's not yet done, and he wants to throw away some seats in 2022 as well.
All right. Wonderful panel. Thanks so much for being here.
Fuck it. Let him throw the seats away. Let him throw away. Because what this Republican Party doesn't seem to understand, what people who follow Trump don't seem to understand, is that it's
Here's
all
how to set up a complete
about
homeschool in just 10 minutes using a cell.
Him. It's all about him. The guy's predictable. And I might have said this before, and I'll say it again. When Paul Manafort was being thrown in jail, and the media went to Trump after he was convicted, Paul Manafort, and he was going to go to jail. Before he even said a word, the first thing that I said to myself in my mind was no collusion. Because at the time, that was the fucking whole topic with him, was no collusion, right? So they turn the cameras over to him and they go up to him and they fucking go with the cameras and they go, well, what do you think about the Manafort verdict? Did he say, oh man, my poor campaign chairman was wrongfully convicted and didn't do anything wrong, and this is a witch? Well, he said it was a witch hunt before, but this is just not correct. No, what did he say? What did he fucking say? No collusion. There was no collusion by me or anybody. No collusion. No collusion whatsoever. He's predictable. He's predictable. Before they even, when they asked him, as they were turning over to him and they were pointing the camera in his direction, I was like, this guy's gonna say no collusion, even though the question they're asking about is about Paul Manafort. He's gonna say no collusion because at the time he was trying to sell you on the fucking idea that he was not responsible for what took place, even though, based on his track history of lies and what he's done, he clearly was responsible. He clearly was involved in what happened with Russia and Hillary Clinton. He asked for the fucking thing live on stage. He said, Russia, if you're listening, we need Hillary Clinton's emails, okay? He did it in front of everybody's fucking eyes, but for some reason, we keep on giving this fucking dipshit, fascist, Nazi, Dennis the Menace haircut wearing motherfucker a free pass. I don't know why. He's the dumbest person, one of the dumbest people I've ever had the pleasure of fucking watching. Or the unpleasure, I should say. So, no, that shit does not surprise me. None of this shit surprised me. The only thing that surprises me is how weak and how gullible you motherfuckers are. That is what surprised me. Because the bullshit is piled up so big, smells so much, and reeks so high, I'm surprised you guys are enjoying the smell of it. But for some reason, you guys seem to want to get yourself a scoop full of bullshit and chug it down. I'm not a bullshit eater. I don't eat bullshit. That's not my thing. I didn't think it was your thing, but for some reason, you have a fucking Dirty Sanchez on your fucking lips. So, you know what? I'm sorry. I apologize. I was wrong. I didn't think you guys were bullshit eaters. I was wrong. I apologize. I now know that you can bullshit 74 million people. Okay? I now know that. Didn't know that before, but I now know that. Sad, wrong, but for some reason, you guys want to give up your excuses and all your fucking talking about whatever the fuck and fucking markets and blah, blah, blah. For some reason, that means you can say Mexicans are rapists as long as the stock market is not collapsing all the way. I don't fucking get it. I never will. Because to me, I don't give a fuck if a motherfucker has trillions of dollars. That's not a reason to pull out his nuts and start fucking making sure they feel good. That's not a reason. There never is one. And you know what? I've never been the type of person to sell out. Look, I'm not going to sit up here and act like I didn't fucking stroke somebody's ego in the past. Yeah. Sometimes we do want to fucking make someone who's of a higher status like us. But let me tell you something. Personally, I ran into a guy who had a little bit of money. And he really did have money. And my red flags went off and said, you know what? Don't trust this guy. Cut this motherfucker off. He's full of shit. He brags all the time about himself. Everything's about him. This guy's no good. But I said, but see, here's why I went wrong. I told myself, you know what? You're always looking for a reason not to succeed. You're always looking for something. This guy has connections. The secret says keep people around you that are living a certain way. Keep those around you, and that'll eventually come to you. So I thought to myself, okay, fine. Let me befriend this guy, because the opportunity in which it could essentially bring me to might be beneficial. Let me not just automatically write this guy off. Huge mistake. It wound up costing me a lot. If I would have listened to my original instincts of this person being no good, being a pathological liar, and not giving them the sincerity of my what's the word I'm looking for? Clemency? Not clemency. I gave this person the benefit of the doubt, even though I knew it wasn't the right thing to do, but I told myself, let me not prejudge his character because he might actually be a good person. Let me not just automatically write him off. Huge mistake. Should have listened to my original instincts. And it's the same thing with this person. By the way, this person likes Donald Trump. No, without, doesn't surprise me actually. But huge mistake. And so what I'd like to tell anybody or everybody or whoever's listening, that during this whole craziness that you're seeing happening in this country with our political system, which has always kind of been a little bit wild, but now it's like the wildest it's ever been. With everything that you're seeing, when a person shows you or tells you what they're about, and a red flag goes off, or some kind of spider sense kicks in and warns you, listen to that spider sense. Don't think to yourself that you're being too judgmental, or you're being too forgiving, or you're always the type of person to judge people. That's okay. It's okay to look at somebody who's trying to convince you that they're all right and tell yourself, you know what, this person's not someone who I need in my circle. It's okay to say, no, you don't belong in my circle. Because by being a nice person, that's what the person who's trying to convince you that they're okay is hoping you would do. So they can suck from you whatever life force that you have that can benefit them. And that was a huge mistake on my part. And even though I've made mistakes like that in the past, I told myself that I wouldn't make those kind of mistakes. And this was a fairly recent one, and I guilted myself into accepting this person because I didn't want to be too judgmental. Not being judgmental at all is a problem. Being too judgmental is a problem. But having the correct judgment and understanding that someone's full of shit, that is not a problem. Peace.